Today on Rappler. The phone call between Philippine President Marcos and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky finally happens. Manila lodges a diplomatic protest against Beijing after its vessel aimed a military-grade laser at a Philippine ship. Mining company Altai Corporation claims it has a valid permit to extract and transport nickel ore in Sibuyan Island. Pasay City offers residents free processing of official birth, death, and marriage certificates. The U.S. military says it recovered critical spyware from the downed Chinese balloon. A member of South Korean girl group Mamamoo bursts into tears over the love of Filipino fans. And Rihanna draws 118 million viewers during the Super Bowl halftime show. After months of trying to have a conversation, Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky speak to each other for the first time. Zelensky announces the phone call on Twitter, calling it, quote, the first phone call in the history of bilateral relations. Zelensky says they discussed the, quote, further deepening of cooperation, in particular on international platforms. Marcos says he told Zelensky that the Philippines was, quote, with you in your search for peace. The phone call happened a little over a month since the chargé d'affaires of the Ukrainian embassy in Malaysia, Denis Mihailuk, said they had been trying to facilitate a phone call between Marcos and Zelensky, but Malacanang was not responding to their request. Marcos claimed his office had responded to the request, but it was difficult to find a good time for both leaders. The Philippine government lodges a diplomatic protest against China after its Coast Guard vessel aimed a military-grade laser at the BRP Malapascua in the West Philippine Sea. Department of Foreign Affairs spokesperson Teresita Daza says the protest was sent to the Chinese embassy a day after the Philippine Coast Guard publicized the incident near Ayungin Shoal. The DFA says in its protest, the Philippines condemned the shadowing, harassment, and dangerous maneuvers, directing of military-grade laser, and illegal radio challenges by Chinese Coast Guard vessel 5205 against PCG vessel BRP Malapascua. The PCG says CCGV 5205 twice directed a military-grade laser light toward the BRP Malapascua, quote, causing temporary blindness to her crew at the bridge. Meanwhile, U.S. State Department spokesperson Ned Price says the U.S. supports the Philippines in this matter. Altai Philippines Mining Corporation says it has the necessary permit to extract and transport samples of nickel ore in Sibuyan Island, Romblon. APMC says because it has a valid Mineral Production Sharing Agreement, or MPSA, it is authorized by the Department of Environment and Natural Resources and other regulatory agencies to explore, transport, and ship ore samples. The DENR says APMC committed violations and ordered a stop to its mining operations in Sibuyan, specifically the construction of a causeway for the transport of ore. APMC appealed for due process, claiming it has been, quote, maligned, unfairly judged, and prevented from performing its, quote, lawful activities. APMC says its MPSA with the DENR was granted in 2009. Since January, protesters have formed a human barricade in Sitio Bato, Barangay España in San Fernando to stop the transport of ore. Pasay City is offering its residents free processing of certified true copies of birth, death, and marriage certificates from Monday, February 13 to Friday, February 17. An official of the Pasay City Local Civil Registry Office says this is in observance of Civil Registration Month this February. Pasay residents interested to get their free CTCs must go to the City Hall and bring proper identification cards or documents. Civil registry, especially birth registry, has long faced issues in the Philippines. In 2021, the Philippine Statistics Authority said 9.26 million Filipinos did not have their births registered with the PSA or did not have copies of their certificates. Senator Grace Poe calls on government agencies and stakeholders to work together to ensure that, quote, no child's birth remains unregistered. The senator is a foundling adopted by the late movie icons Fernando Poe Jr. and Susan Roses. The United States military says it recovered critical electronics from the suspected Chinese spy balloon downed by a U.S. fighter jet off South Carolina's coast. Also recovered were key sensors presumably used for intelligence gathering. The U.S. military's Northern Command says their crews have been able to, quote, recover significant debris. The Chinese balloon, which Beijing denies is a government spy vessel, spent a week flying over the U.S. and Canada before President Joe Biden ordered it shot down. The episode strained ties between Washington and Beijing, leading America's top diplomat to postpone a trip to China. Meanwhile, China says U.S. high-altitude balloons have flown over its airspace without permission more than 10 times since 2022. But U.S. National Security spokesman John Kirby tells MSNBC the U.S. is, quote, not flying balloons over China. For one night only, South Korean girl group Mamamoo finally meets with Filipino fans at its MyCon World Tour Manila show. On February 12, the four-piece group serenades thousands of fans or mumus at the Araneta Coliseum. The group makes fans go wild as it performs multiple hits like Egotistic, Go Go Bebe, The Calcomani, and more. A highlight of the show was Mamamoo's twist on the members' solo stages, where they each opted to perform their own take on each other's solo releases. Rapper Moonbull sings Hwasa's flirty twit, while Wheein puts her own spin on Solar's Honey. Before saying goodbye, the Mamamoo girls expressed their gratitude to Filipino fans, with Moonbull even bursting into tears after watching a special video package by Filipino mumus. Manila was the last stop on the Asian leg of Mamamoo's MyCon World Tour. The National Football League says the Super Bowl 57 attracted an average 113 million viewers across traditional television and digital platforms. The figure represents a 6-year high for its championship game. Last year, Nielsen reported an average audience of 101 million people for the contest. The NFL says viewership increased during the halftime show starring pop and R&B superstar Rihanna, averaging 118 million people on TV and digital platforms. The Super Bowl ranks as the most watched event on U.S. television every year, though viewership has been dwindling since it peaked in 2015. This year's matchup featured injured quarterback Patrick Mahomes leading the Kansas City Chiefs to a come-from-behind 38-35 victory over the Philadelphia Eagles. And that's today's wrap. I'm Nina Liu. Thank you for watching. Click the link below for the full story. Follow us on Rappler's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok.